We now look back over a century that shaped the modern fire and rescue service. A journey through time, a journey around the UK, a window into the world of firefighting through 100 years of history. This is the lives of yesterday, brought to life by the voices of today. We begin here in London in 1920, the Middlebrook Committee on Fire Service Conditions. We will hear from George Taylor, a Manchester station officer at the time. But first, we hear the words of Jim Bradley, who initiated the founding of our union.
Our firefighters are on duty 14 days out of 15. Under today's system, they have to remain on station. If strangers do not come in, it is possible that they do not see anybody for up to 14 days. They are just as isolated as if they were at sea. Firefighters cannot watch their children because they do not know when the bells will go. So their families are practically condemned to penal servitude. We, as a new union for firefighters, ask for a shift system and vastly improved conditions. As you know, our members are prepared to take strike action if required.
We realise this will be a very big change, but we also know our lives in the station are very narrow, confined, and lived under conditions quite unknown to the public. We realise the cost that the new system will involve, but we believe that until now, the community has only avoided the expense of preserving itself from fire by absorbing more than a fair share of the lives of our firefighters.
Next, our journey takes us to the height of World War II. It's New Year's Eve, 1940, and the Blitz has devastated London. We will hear from an FBU spokesperson, but first, we hear the words of an AFS firefighter, one of thousands of women who joined the union in wartime.
2 nights ago, the Luftwaffe dropped 1,500 firebombs in London. We firewomen drove the petrol carriers, the staff cars, the canteen vans into the thick of the blaze. We helped to operate the hoses. Each one carries enough pressure to take your head off. Embers were falling like rain on my helmet. The city lies in ruins, but we saved St. Paul's. It stands alone, but it is a symbol of hope. I'm to receive an award for bravery with 16 of my colleagues, but 14 of my auxiliary comrades were killed. I saw Benjamin and Herbert crushed in a bomb blast. Herbert's wife does not have the money to pay for a funeral. So Benjamin's wife has said she'll bury them together.
A coffin fit for a hero to lie in. It's not much to ask. In the first bad week in London, 8 of our dead comrades were delivered to their families for burial in sacks in council lorries. The Fire Brigades Union has approached the press and the authorities and has won the sympathy of the council for our call to give the same burial grant to auxiliary and regular firefighters killed in the line of duty. We went to the Home Office and the Ministry of Health, and we're happy to report that they granted our request to extend it to all civil defence services. Just remember to let your family have our address so that we can help in the case of accidents.
It is 1960, and firefighters face resistance in government and dangers at work. Now, we hear the words of General Secretary John Horner at the Fire Brigades Union Annual Conference in Rothesay.
2 months ago in Glasgow, 19 men lost their lives. We have nothing but admiration and pride for our comrades in the Glasgow Brigade. Only firefighters and those who have seen the ruins of that whisky warehouse can fully appreciate the magnitude of their work on that terrible night. If this had happened in any other more populous part of Glasgow, who knows what disaster would have followed. The day after, we were involved in arguments about what authority the fire brigade had for these places. Did they have any authority? Nobody is sure. 2 years ago, in the very heart of London, in the basement of the Smithfield Meat Market, 2 firefighters lost their lives. Their station was just up the hill. They did not know that the danger existed. They walked to their death in a catacomb spreading over acres. And we are supposed to protect the population against fire. Firefighters are told again and again that they cannot go out on fire inspection. They cannot leave their station. We are condemning them to spend so many hours polishing their stations. What has it got to do with today's service? We want a firefighter's job in the 60s to be transformed. We want them off their knees, protecting Britain from fire, starting at recruit level. Britain cannot afford not to train their firefighters this way. We believe that this must mark a new era.
Next, we find ourselves in Northern Ireland, 1977. Firefighters face unprecedented risks as they try to go about their work. We hear the words of a Belfast firefighter.
The troubles permeate every aspect of our lives. Bombings, shootings, and the army on the streets. We confront a totally different magnitude of danger in fighting fires. Incendiary devices are going off all over the city. Nowhere has the same intensity of fires. Now, a Belfast firefighter tackles more major fires in 2 years than they normally would in 20. Sometimes you're under a building and you walk past a bomb. You don't even see it. Sometimes if a place collapses, it buries a bomb and it hasn't gone off. Sometimes the smoke clears, you look down and there's a bomb at your feet. This goes on daily. Our crews have been in multiple incidents where we have come under gunfire. The FBU and the Brigade are very conscious of the risk our crews are at. They communicate with some very dangerous people, including paramilitaries, to emphasise that the fire service is not a security force, that we are neutral, and that we represent and serve the entire community. The service recruits from Protestant and Catholic communities, and to maintain unity, the FBU has laid down a policy of firm neutrality. We leave politics at the front gate.
Fast forward to 2001 and the modern era. Progress in equality has been made, but minorities have suffered in the service. We hear from women at the Fire Brigades Union Women's School in Sheffield.
10 years ago, I joined the Fire Brigade. It was just before my 23rd birthday, and I thought I knew the world. I got quite a shock when I went into the station as the first woman there. But after all that training, after getting that far, I was determined not to walk away. When I joined, I had to use the cook's toilet. There were no facilities for women at the station. I found out that a senior officer had sent me there to punish a watch that he didn't like. Once, a firefighter from another station was moaning about a colleague whilst I carried on working. He said I was a real fireman's fireman. I took it as a compliment, but anyone who knows me now wouldn't dare say anything but firefighter.
In 1992, 1 year after I joined, the FBU held its first women's school here. Through the union, I met other women firefighters who were a great help to me. I attended FBU meetings and these schools as often as I could, despite the hostility from some of my managers. There were comments about men not getting special weekends away, so why should we? My black colleagues had similar experiences. But those who see us as the only ones the FBU helps are missing the point. Equality is not a black, feminist, or gay issue. It's about treating human beings as human beings. I'm thankful to the pioneers of the union who formed the equality sections to change the future of our service. It's often easier to run into a burning building than to challenge sexism, racism, or homophobia. At least now everyone has access to facilities. I hope that new recruits will not know what I'm talking about and will never feel alone because of who they are. But we still have a long way to go.
This brings us to the present day and reflections on one day in particular, June the 14th, 2017. We hear an excerpt from a speech given by our General Secretary, Matt Rack. But first, we hear the words of London firefighter Ricky Nuttall.
Grenfell was so overwhelming. I went to work as one person, and I came back effectively a different person. It was immediately obvious how serious a fire it was. You get called to a high-rise fire, and you expect to see flames in one window. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't apprehensive about going in, but I felt confident in the capabilities of my equipment, myself, and my team. They're people I trust with my life. The sheer scale of Grenfell was like nothing I've ever seen before, and hopefully will never see again. I just felt heartbroken that I couldn't do more. One morning, I guess I had some sort of a breakdown. That was the moment when I realized I needed some more help. But I wanted to be at work, speaking to people who were there at the incident with me and have their own struggles. You belong there. They're like a second family.
I have never, in my professional life, seen firefighters have to deal with a fire on that scale and with such a risk to life. I have never seen firefighters have to do the things that they did on that terrible night. Firefighting equipment does not turn those people into superheroes. They remain human beings. We had firefighters whose air ran out while they were trying to save lives. We had firefighters who gave their own safety equipment to members of the public. We had firefighters who entered that building again and again because they were determined to do whatever was possible. They consciously and deliberately risked their own lives to save the lives of others. It is a miracle that we did not lose significant numbers of our own members that night. From start to finish, we are a team. From the people taking terrifying control calls to the fire crews who turn out in response to those calls. That is what trade unionists look like. We in the FBU stand in solidarity with the victims of this appalling event. We have the right to ask questions and to demand answers and we have the right to demand action. The best tribute that we can pay to those who lost their lives is to ensure that this never happens again.
I now invite you all to join us in a moment of silent reflection as we remember all of those killed at Grenfell Tower, all firefighters who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty, and all victims of fire and disaster across the United Kingdom.